a commodity in Wisconsin, because we have these great maple trees. We need to tap into it, I guess. Kind of like the cheese business, and focusing on, there is a business for maple syrup and the education behind that. So I thought it was very interesting. I do the same stuff on a very small scale, and wanted to hear from the expert. The other thing is that, we can provide information for, as GIS professionals, where, maybe the best trees are, any kind of data that may help place potential processing plants or whatever it may be for the future of maple syrup.
Yeah, awesome. So this is more of a discussion than a presentation, although I'll touch on a little bit of the data that we do have. But as Scott said, I think there's a lot of potential to expand the information data that we have. So just a little bit of background. So my position was established a few months ago as the maple syrup project coordinator. We have some federal funding through maple syrup focused grant through USDA, and the intent is to build a long-term program. We have initial funding for 3 years, and basically during this time we're doing a lot of needs assessment work, as I mentioned. So we're contacting resource professionals. We're doing interviews with them to look at how forest management gets done, and all related things there. And then we're also working with producers to kind of determine what their needs are from an education programming standpoint, from everything from how to manage their sugar bush, efficiency of operations, business development, product development, all those kind of things. So we're really early stage in developing the program, and one of the things that's a bit of a challenge is that we really have very little place-based information. We have a little bit of data at the statewide level, which you see here, and that is essentially all we have. And the data comes from two sources. One is an annual survey that goes out to producers that is, best we can tell, a vast underrepresentation of what happens in the state. But most of the data that you see here comes from that. So we know, or the data that we have from 2021 is that there were about 850,000 taps placed in the state, produced about 300,000 gallons of maple syrup. And that puts us essentially fourth place in production in the US. Vermont is the largest producer. They produce about 10 times what we do. And generally, as I said, this is an underrepresentation of what happens. The other source of data is the Census of Agriculture that happens. And the last data we have from that is 2017, indicates there are about 1,400 places that produce maple syrup in the state, which I'm guessing is somewhere like a fourth to a fifth of what the actual number of producers in the state, just based on what the equipment providers share with us, as far as how many kind of sales contacts they have. So anyway, the main point of discussion is kind of thinking about kind of what could happen at a county or regional kind of scale as far as producing better data, identifying potential sugar bushes that could come into production. There's a fair amount of interest in some larger producers of identifying land, whether that's private land or public land, that could be developed into sugar bushes. But then just the basics of kind of enhancing our data. And these could play out in a couple of ways. The way I think that's kind of most feasible in a sense is working locally through county level extension contacts and land water conservation, economic development kind of partnerships to support county level work. That'd be education programming and business development work and all those kind of things. So it'd be helpful to have the data available at that local level. And then the other scale is just kind of better statewide data about what's happening in the state. So I guess that's the background, and I'd be interested just to hear if there are any related efforts that anyone is currently involved in, but then also kind of what out of this kind of is potentially of interest, and how could you see it kind of playing out related to the work that you're all doing. So I'll stop there and just open it up.
That's great. So from the Foresters, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm Jason, again, one of the county foresters here in Bayfield County. And I think you've met with Mike Amon, who's one of my colleagues. He was attending one of your meetings. You smiled. I saw a smile there. That means you actually did meet Mike Amon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just think it's great. We had, on the county forest, we had a number of years ago started kicking this idea around with the realization that, man, we have a lot of maple trees in the state. Canada just beats our pants off pretty much in terms of production. And that doesn't necessarily have to be. It seemed to be more of a cultural thing where a lot of foresters and landowners were kind of nervous about tapping trees because, oh, we're going to ruin the wood quality by staining it with these, the holes and the stains from the taps. We just felt like that was kind of baloney, especially in some of our more medium quality sugar maple and red maple here in Bayfield County. So we were all over that. We thought that was great. And we started reaching out to the Maple Syrup Producers Association in Wisconsin, just asking would there be interest in larger outfits leasing land where they wouldn't have to take on the tax burden and, just the details involved in ownership. And we just ran out of steam. It was just one of those million ideas that we chased. So to hear that you're coming along is really exciting, and more power to you. And if I can share my data or the county's data, man, we're all over that. So yeah. Just really excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, and Mike and I had a conversation about this. Mike's actually on our advisory group, and we've talked about kind of the public lands potential, which is interesting. As you've said, there's very little of that happening in Wisconsin. It happens in Vermont and some other states that have a lot less public land than we do. And so I think there's a lot of potential there. And so, yeah, definitely look forward to working with you on some shared efforts there.
Good info.
So I have a question and a thought. This is Carl Sack. And so the question is, have you reached out at all to any of the tribes with resources, or, see if like they'd be interested?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have to some extent, although we're just getting started with that. One of the outcomes of the project right now is basically building relationships and identifying specific needs of the tribes in the state. And we actually are just launching a specific effort that we're calling the Tribal Maple Sugaring Network. So we've hired a student to do some coordination there, and we'll be holding kind of networking and education events over the course of the next year to start that program up. So we've worked a little bit with Menominee, a little bit with Ho-Chunk, although just started, have a connection through Glyphwick. So there's a lot. I would say we've just barely started in that, but definitely strong interest there, and an area that we want to be able to support moving forward.
Sure. And then I guess the thought I had was, we talking about data, you know, I have friends who tap, and like I hear, oh, this was a great season, or this was a lousy season, I produced X number of gallons, whatever. But it seems like I never see a public place where that's reported, or an opportunity to report, and there's definite linkages to, you know, climate change, with, you know, how seasons are changing, or, you know, it'd be interesting to see that data over time, at least. And so I'm just wondering if there's a sort of way to approach it sideways and create some kind of web portal where, you know, oh, tell us how your maples, you know, tell us how your maples did this year. Tell us what your season was like, and we want to collect this data for climate analysis. And then you would also know where the producers are from that.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah,
thought.
that's a great idea. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can see that too. You know, this year, you know, I put less taps out, but there was a lot more rain. So, you know, I have open buckets, so you're collecting sap and rainwater. You know, you know, it runs down the tree into your bucket. So, or, you know, if you got bags, then it's kind of protected, or whatever different kind of homemade setup you have.
Yeah.
You know, people are always talking about how much sap they got, or, you know, it's a good year, bad year type deal. And getting the numbers behind that would be interesting to see, you know, self-reporting or not, kind of like what Carl said.
Yeah.
It would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the interesting things that happens now related to that is the Ag Statistics, what is it, Bureau, whatever it is, does send out a survey, but it's not clear how they identify where they send it to. It seems to be based on who's maybe completed it in the past, or at least who they've sent it in the past. It's not super clear. But it misses a lot of smaller scale hobby producers and just generally a lot of people. And so having some type of portal like you're talking about to provide data, number of taps, and how much syrup was made would definitely be way to
Seems like it'd make
bolster.
a pretty good open access survey 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy to do, I think. So yeah, I like that idea.
And I would think that this data, as opposed to maybe some other things like wild rice and where you went and how much you collected, I would think something about maple syrup production is something that people would love to report on. That's the
Right.
that's the first thing that, you know, people love. Oh, I got 5 gallons this year, or 10 or 15. It would be something I think that people probably would be more readily, you know, to submit this data. And,
Yeah.
and I think the survey 1, 2, 3 form could be the way to go to get that spatial location, and then you can, if you have the right developer, that could feed directly into an online dashboard that would summarize things, you know, almost real time. So, and the survey 1, 2, 3 forms are, you know, can be pretty simple and easy to use for folks of all different capabilities, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Survey 1, 2, 3, but, you know, we can, you know, have discussions, and we can help you kind of look at different options.
Cool.
Like,
So that's in that form, you're able to add spatial data. That's the value of it, basically. Yeah, one of the values of it. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that would be super helpful.
sounds like Al already volunteered.
Good.
It helps the northern area, you know. I think there's probably more, and I'm only assuming this, there's probably no data on it, but there's probably more maple production north of Highway 8 than south or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably draw the line at maybe 64 or 29 maybe. But there's definitely there, and the reason I'd say that Marathon County, Lang Lake County, even Clark County are really high as well, but definitely northern focused, in addition to the driftless, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
I would think one of the challenges would be to reaching the correct people to fill out the form. You know, it's not as if you're reporting, not that you're buying a tag to tap trees or anything, so you can't just do the licensees, for example. So I guess really pound them with social media. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have an idea, Jeremy, of how you would reach the correct people?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on it. We're struggling with this a little bit, but I think it's social media. The interesting thing, which goes beyond maple syrup a little bit, but if you look at where people are kind of identifying as maple syrup producers, the largest groups are on social media. So Wisconsin Maple Syrup Producers Association, which is a membership organization, has a few hundred members. Any like email distribution list or any the surveys that go out for statistics at this point are in the hundreds, and you look at the Facebook group for Wisconsin maple syrup producers and it's like 3,000. So it gives you a kind of a sense of the scale of what we're dealing with, and gets to the challenge that you're recognizing of how do you know who to get the information to. So yeah, right now social media is probably the best way to do it as we build up the contacts.
You give anybody a tax break on it, and then
Yeah.
that will help quite a bit also.
Which actually gets to some of the county level data, and it would be interesting to know kind of what the data is, because again, we have no idea, because they can maple syrup production gets classified as agriculture use, and so there are a lot of people who claim that, and we right now at this point we don't have any way to know where that's happening at the statewide level. So it'd be interesting to know how that could be identified, and could it be aggregated in some way at the statewide level to enhance the information we have. But any thoughts about that?
I don't, yeah, it's coded in the assessing, but I don't know how it's broken down.
Yeah.
If it's just ag or, what type of ag. I thought about doing the same thing to get a tax break.
Yeah.
Your property, because ag is way less than forested.
Yeah.
And then you'd be in competition with forest crop too.
Forest management. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if you could offer, like, partner with some retailers, offer some sort of discount on supplies for filling out.
Yeah, when we sent the producer needs assessment that we will send out here in about the next month, we're gonna have at least some gift certificates to producers as incentives to participate in that. So, and use social media. I think we'll still hit only a fraction of folks, but yeah, incentives like that will be important for us to build the audience for sure.
I had a thought, more of a top-down approach. I'm hearing kind of bottom-up approaches where the individual producer would submit a survey. Maybe another way, and I think those are good. Maybe another way would be getting to the consulting forester groups. Maybe you've already done this. American Tree Farm System inspectors in Wisconsin, managed forest law staff, and then just certified plan writers. Anyway, people who are working with landowners. I don't know if that data is standardized where they would have a database that says, you know, here's landowner number 23 and on their land, maple syrup production was one of their values. But I know that's a question that gets entered into plans of all kinds. Why do you have your land? What are the landowner objectives is kind of the lingo. I doubt that that's, you know, standardized, but maybe from the forester down to the landowner, and
Yeah.
that'd be a lot of chasing, but I think you could probably ferret out some more. It's just another facet, another angle.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Jason. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it from that angle of getting data. But it definitely, I mean, you're right that it often gets shared with the foresters when they're doing management plan development. So that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? We'll head to the next presenter if none. Thank you.
We'll take a 1 or 2 minute break. So if anyone needs to stand up, stretch, grab coffee, and then we will start the presentation.
A 10-minute break.
I'm gonna drop. You should all have my email address, but it's in the chat. And I just say, if anybody's interested